Mic check. Mic check. All right. What's the deal with airline food?
Whoa, hey. No one to blame but myself. All right. Check, check, check.
Man, a little power.
This is what happens.
Suddenly he turns his mic all the way up.
Do you know where you are, channel?
We're 3 channels in a row.
Oh, okay. So,
We are, yeah, 1, 2, 3. It's this one. Oops.
yeah, these two are good. Okay. We're going to get started with our Q&A, so you can have a seat. Not leave. Just have a seat.
We want you to be
We
part
want
of
you
it.
to be here, be a part of this Q&A.
Taste our wisdom.
We we have a couple of questions that were sent in, and then if anyone here has a question, then we will take that as well. But let's jump into it. I was back in the go zone today, so I don't even know what we talked about. But I have a feeling I can
Ask
guess.
him all the questions.
Yes. So we have like a historical question to start with. We were in the book of Ruth this morning. So the question is, Boaz in the book of Ruth is a farmer, and it seems like he had some measure of wealth. However, we get to his grandson, Jesse, who's known as a shepherd, as is David. So how did they go from being farmers to shepherds? Is there any explanation of this in the Bible?
Short answer, no. There is not. But in the time of Judges, as that Ruth is set in, there's a lot of dynamics going on. So we don't know the firstbornness who receives the lion's share. We don't know like the oppressions that go on with the Midianites and them stealing from the Israelites and things like that. So there's a lot of loss that goes on through the book of Judges. So it's not far-fetched that people who were, prospering and doing well later on because of the cycle of Judges find themselves destitute and broken and out of, like Gideon is in the wine press threshing wheat because there's no food. So he's trying to make food. That doesn't mean they didn't harvest a lot of food, but the armies of Midian came in and took them. So,
All right. Any thoughts about Boaz and his family and what happened to them? Any insights? No?
No, not especially.
All right. So this question, broader in scope, I think, than just today's message. But how can you explain letting go, freeing yourself from tangible things to a fellow church family member without coming off as judgmental or condescending, but feeling as though this will help them live a more unrestricted life?
it's a good question.
It is a good question.
Dan, you're our go-to.
All right. I think that one of the really hard parts about somebody who's going through letting something go is this feeling of loneliness within it. Like, I'm letting something go. I'm giving something up. I'm so on and so forth. And I think a lot of times as not just Christians in general, but Christian leaders, we might want to step into that situation and go, you can do this, you can let this go, and start guiding them very verbally through what they're going through and what they're letting go or instructing them to let things go. And I think we forget to walk with them through that. And I think we can mitigate some of that feeling of condescension and belittlement when we're kind of remembering to love them and to check in on them and say, hey, how are you feeling through this period? What can I do to help? And walking alongside them through that struggle. I think that a lot of times, depending on your personality or depending on how the advice is given, things can just feel condescending in a moment. But I think we can kind of soften some of that when we're actually with them through it.
Yeah, I think of the question that we addressed last week about how we can read Scripture and come to different conclusions. And kind of we talked about the approach in that, knowing that the Spirit is at work differently in different people than the Spirit's at work in me. And I think that can come into play here too. I don't think that means like everything the Spirit has taught me I have to keep to myself because He'll let you know. But it does mean that I might be at a different place than someone else. So let's say it's finances. We're talking about money. maybe I'm at a point where I'm not worried about where money is coming from. I've learned to let that go, and maybe I've been through some experiences that have taught me that has gotten me to that place. I can let someone know who is stressed out about money. This has been my experience in learning to let go of that worry and that struggle. And that can help them, or it might not, but the pressure isn't on me, just like we said in witnessing. The pressure isn't for me to save someone. The pressure isn't on me to get someone to see things exactly as I see them, but I can share my experience and hope that that is helpful to them, and do that in a way that is loving. And I think even like me-centered language, like this is what helps me, this is how I have gone through that. I don't know if that's helpful to you at all, but instead of saying you should do this, you should do that, I think that is going to be harder for someone to receive. But this is how I've handled this. I think speaking from your experience might make someone more receptive to hear that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that pastoring is an exercise of that. How do I tell people what I think they need to hear without coming off as judgmental? There's a tension there that I don't know if you're not doing it that you understand. That's always what we're doing. You're rooting for people. Obviously, the question speaks about someone you're rooting for. I want you to be free. I want you to be okay. And your heart is for that person. So what I would say two things that come to my mind. One of which is, how do I effectively put into practice the belief that the Spirit is the one who convinces, not me? That's a hard, like you're talking about different conclusions at different times, and that's a part of this broader work of the Spirit. Like, it may not be the moment for that person to hear that. I've got to allow the Spirit to prompt. I've got to allow the Spirit to give me words, opportunity. I think there's some of that that's undescribable. It's kind of like if I tried to describe to you how to ride a bike and find your balance. I can't give enough words to it till you feel it. You've got to feel it. So I think finding the way that the Spirit leads that process. How do I engage and speak something while trusting the Spirit to be the one who brings the change? Some of it is mind. Some of it is like, I have to keep it in mind that the Spirit is the one that brings the change, so I don't talk like, no, you don't get it. No, let me talk louder or longer or harder or whatever to get it through to you. That's one part of it. But then being someone who says, I am going to be faithful in talking, and I think there's a sensitivity to say, what kind of words could I use so that I'm not trumping the Spirit, so that I'm offering the Spirit an opportunity to work. So I think that's a hard balance, recognizing the Spirit is the one who does the convincing, not me. Act and speak and wait like that. The other thing that I think is important to set tone for stuff like that is question asking rather than declaration making. So I think we a lot of times feel like if I just declare the truth to you, and how did that work for my children? Like zero, right? I mean, I did it, but a lot of times just saying the truth is not going to transform. But question asking can ask them to look at it and tell me what they think. And a lot of times when I ask a question, I'm not really worried about what they actually say to me. I'm more worried that they've looked at it and started to maybe evaluate it. If they're stumbling over an answer or whatever, I'll try to mitigate some of that uncomfortableness. It's okay. This is hard. We don't really know. But I will ask a question of like, you're carrying a lot of things here. What do you think that means is there a connection between that and your stress level or whatever? Just asking a question that asks them to look at it and make an evaluation of it. Because now what I'm trying to do, and some of that is invite the Spirit to help them see instead of me trying to make them see. And maybe that question just bounces off and doesn't go anywhere. Or maybe it's something that 2 days later they're still thinking about, and the answer they gave me isn't the answer they wind up with a few days later. So
I think that's good. I think much like it's a learning process and a feeling out to know that the Spirit is the one who's doing it. I think asking questions is a feeling out. It's a lot easier to just give shortcuts to, I know the right answer, here it is, rather than like turn your statement into a question, because even if they come to a different conclusion, they will be more secure in that than in just taking your answer for face value.
And I don't mean a question like, don't you think I'm right that? That's not.
Right. Great. Any questions from our audience today, or you don't have to have one, but Okay, awesome. All right, well, those were our 2 questions. So thank you for listening back to our special Mother's Day edition of
With
Question
no
and-
mothers.
With no mothers answering and no questions about mothers. But yeah, happy Mother's Day. Happy belated Mother's Day to everyone.